Welcome to the Ultimate Gaming Realm, and this is your curator, Dixon, logging on. This Ultimate Gaming Realm episode is going to be an introduction to a new side series for the games I'm about to talk about. The new side series is called Video Game Dropout. Now, what do I mean by that? Like, the types of games that I played and I give up sometime in the middle of the game for certain reasons, because the game's too difficult, the game's too flawed, or something like that. Good game or bad game. In other words, it's a type of game I haven't finished, and I probably never will. That's why I'm going to talk about them to the best of my ability so I can get these games off my chest. Now, just because I'm dropping out on these games doesn't mean the games are bad themselves. There's a lot of good games in the world I would love to hate. And I love to keep giving them chances until I get to the point where I just about had enough. Or it's just a certain game that was great at one time, but it's one of those unlucky games that no longer holds up to today's standards. I'm going to try to be quick as I can with these ones. Now, the first two games on this first episode of Video Game Dropout, Farcry 1 and 2. Both games might have been interesting at the time, but no use to me playing them again. And here's why. We'll start with a quick backstory first. Starting with the first Far Cry game. Far Cry was released in 2004 exclusively on the PC, developed by Crytek Studios and published by Ubisoft. Far Cry might have been a critical success for the time, but unfortunately the first Far Cry game is one of those games that's out of place with today's standards. Now, I never did get into the Far Cry games at that time. In fact, I never was a fan to begin with. I was actually just finally checking into the series. Since I heard many good things about the series, and I got a Steam bundle on sale recently, I should at least dig into what I missed back then. But the game hasn't aged well, and the game's not only super difficulty, but also flawed. And I had the game on the easiest difficulty, and it's still hard as shit. Back then might have been okay to put up with if I was into it, but trying to get into it nowadays is pointless. I like the story in Far Cry, but like I said, Far Cry is one of those games I never got into back then. Maybe I regret not getting to it back then, but I don't think it really makes a difference if I did or not, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to draw the line. It would be neat if they actually remade the first game, with the same story, except adding some new parts to the story, and using a recent engine that a current Far Cry game uses, and adding new stuff while at it. That would be interesting, because I liked the story in the first game. And the game was quite ambitious for the time. But I got into the series late, and I just couldn't get into it because I keep getting my ass handed to the point where I finally gave up. And it pains me to say this, I don't think I'm going to ever play this game again. Not even the later released console ports, like Far Cry Instincts or Predator or Vengeance or the 2013 version of the PC game, Far Cry Classic. Unless they do an actual remake from scratch, I'm done with that game. Now, moving on with Far Cry 2. Now, what's my problem with this one? Far Cry 2 was released in October of 2008, this time on multiple platforms on day one. And this is the first Far Cry game that was developed by Ubisoft Montreal. And gameplay-wise, they did a better job. The gameplay is not as flawed and dated as the first game, and it has more of an open world with a variety of shit to do. But unlike the first game, I didn't care about the story in Far Cry 2 or any of the playable characters. And Far Cry 2 may be more playable, but it actually gets boring really fast. Yeah, the first game is super hard, and the second game is just super boring. Once again, it's probably my lack of experience for not giving the attention to the series from day one, but it's one of those open world games I didn't stick around for too long, so I decided to drop out on Far Cry 2 as well. So at least the first Far Cry game is not alone in my dropout section, but both games have different motives on why I drop out. But neither one of those two are alone. Now the third Far Cry game and Blood Dragon are the two I get into the most. I haven't tried any of the other Far Cry games after those, so I don't have any notes on them. I barely even have any notes on the third game or Blood Dragon just yet. I just played a little both of them, but I didn't get too much far into them just yet, but I definitely will when I get a chance. Anyway, the first two Far Cry games I drop out of. I wasn't trying to bash these games by all means. I'm just saying that the first game was too hard and the second game was too boring. And there's a big possible chance I'll never play either one of those two again. Anyway, thank you all very much, and this is Dixon of the Ultimate Gaming Realm logging off.